Ys I and II are some of the most influential JRPGs ever made. They are also nearly 40 years old, brutally obscure about where you're supposed to go, and contain some of the worst boss fights we've ever played. So, why the hell did we have so much fun playing them? Is Ys a forgotten classic, or are we just wearing our nostalgia goggles? Hello and welcome back to Critical Arcade, the weekly video game book club where the list decides what we play. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And this week, the list told us to play Ys.
Ys. Because that's confirmed how it's said, right? Because years and years I've been saying Ys and yes
Ys,
and
Ys.
ice. But it's
Ys. Ys. Not just any Ys, because there are apparently loads of them. Ys I and II Chronicles Plus.
Oh, and just for people getting confusion, this is spelt YS. So this isn't like we can't read. It is just a really weird two-letter name that I certainly didn't know how to pronounce. But yes,
I mean, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, read the title. Why?
Yes, that's very true. It's true. That's not a spelling error. That is what this game is called.
There are tons of ways to play this game. Well, these games, I guess, because they were released in 1989 for the first time.
I got 87.
87.
Yeah, like the year I was born. It's as old as me, this game. Well, granted, the original version of this game is as old as I am. And then the following released in 88. So it was like a 1 year gap between Ys I and II. Which is crazy for back in the day. Yeah, this was made, as you said, developed by Xseed, No More Heroes, Rune Factory, and all the other Ys games. You know, I have to keep thinking how to say that name. Ys. But yeah, it's crazy to think how old this game is.
This was developed by Nihon Falcom.
Why did I write Xseed? Nihon Falcom. What did Nihon Falcom make then?
Nihon Falcom, they make the Trials series, the Legend of Heroes, Trials of Cold Steel, Trials of Azure or the Sky or something.
Maybe I'm getting confused with like the original makers and because this was the revamped version and Chronicles Plus and all these other things.
Could definitely be there.
Oh yes, they were the ones which helped kind of stabilize Japanese gaming, right? They were one of the OG
no joke.
Companies.
That is absolutely, I think, what happened. Ys, coming out in 1987, was one of the 4 big JRPG games or franchises establishing the genre.
Yeah, that Final Fantasy and 2 others. I was going to sound more intelligent than I was expecting to be, but I only know Final Fantasy.
Fantasy,
Dragon Quest, maybe.
Dragon Quest, obviously, and Megami Tensei.
Oh, of course. Oh, wow. What a great legacy of games you just mentioned there. Those really are the
it's incredible.
Of JRPG.
Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, still going super strong today. Megami Tensei, you might not know it, but that is Persona.
Yeah, that was like the original. It's the same guy still, right? He's still around. The guy who made the original Megami Tensei games.
No idea.
But yeah, all those Persona games everyone loves. They are still going very strong, as I'm sure everybody knows.
And this one, the 4th one that's part of that holy grail, Ys, kind of fell into obscurity. Yeah,
it kind of did. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. I've played these games before. Have you ever met anybody who has actually played the Ys games?
No.
Like Final Fantasy, yes, and Dragon Quest, yes.
Not at all.
Yeah, isn't it kind of a strange thing here in the West? I don't know anyone who has, but
nope.
They are big games. There's over 11 of them at the very least. I think there's far more if you do the online and everything.
Which just could be a franchise that's really found its niched audience.
Yes, agreed. It's, you don't last that long without at least money coming in somewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
So on all that, should we jump into the narrative? Narrative being one of the main aspects of a JRPG or any game, especially back in the day.
Let's do it. Especially with these older types of games, narrative would be one of the biggest parts of a game back then. It's not like they could do much with the visuals.
That's true.
Or
That's
the
true.
gameplay at all. The audio even was just 8-bit or 16-bit. So the narrative is really where they had to strike big, which is, funny enough, that's why how Final Fantasy became as big as it is.
That's very true. Because of the narrative they put in their games that no one had ever actually played these types of things before with such depth.
And I think it's here that we should kind of state which version of Ys we
it's very
played.
true. Agreed.
So this game, as we said, came out 1987 and 88. Those aren't the versions we played.
No, those.
There are lots. I had to ask ChatGPT, holy crap, which one should we play?
Yes, I did the same thing. I wanted, we are kind of spoiled in gaming right now, so I was kind of like, which version should I play? And of course, as Nick was about to say, the Chronicles Plus. Not just Chronicles Plus, the extra strength version of Chronicles was the one suggested that we'd enjoy the most. So
correct.
That's what we did. That's what we got our hands on.
Currently the most modernized, definitive way to play this Ys 1 and 2 package. So we just went with that because it's easiest to play on our machines.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed the best time to experience these games.
Yeah, and you can get them on Steam and GOG, which just makes life a lot easier as well from our perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's jump in then, right?
Even with this, how do you say, modernized versions, the narrative is largely the same. And by 2026 standards, the story is pretty basic.
Yeah, it's hard. Ladies and gents, when we do these reviews, it's so hard because we want to compare it to the Baldur's Gates and the Final Fantasies and all the things that we got now. But you got to kind of remember this was made in 1987. We got the revamped version, but we kind of got to put our retro brains in gear and kind of see it from that perspective. And
I think so too. Sorry, yeah.
It is tough because Final Fantasy was on Final Fantasy IV by then, which was slowly starting to develop storylines.
What do you mean, by 1987?
I think so, right?
Probably. I know Final Fantasy 1 came out before Ys.
Yeah. Yes, kind of quite a bit before, I think.
Wow.
And that was basic, but they slowly started developing stories, and then Ys, of course, trying to compete in their thing, also put a story out. Whereas, it's okay. A 1980s brain kind of kicked in. It's okay, right?
It's okay, even for back then.
Exactly, it is. I love the idea that this game is also built on a lot of history, and it's strangely enough built on. When I read it, Ys is actually a famous fictional kingdom in Breton, the legendary Breton.
Whoa.
Folklore, which I thought,
really,
wow, yes, they pulled on actual original folklore or mythological city that kind of does get swallowed by the sea, which
okay.
I know I was surprised that again Japan pulled on that type of history to develop these games in, which I thought was very cool. But anyway, before we digress, Ys 1, you play Adol Kristen, just a young red-haired adventurer who's in the town of Barbaros, and then I love the start, just hears rumours of a mysterious land, and now he wants to go and adventure there. And then unfortunately everything goes wrong, like all these games always do. It's either amnesia or a storm or something hellishly happens, which is fundamentally exactly what happens to him, and he gets washed ashore of this island of Esteria. Now, here, Esteria is plagued by its own problems with demons and demonic forces, and young Adol has to go and kind of find out why.
It really is that simple.
That's kind of it. He does go and meet people and go to towns and kind of have long text conversations with people.
Yes. So, okay.
Go on.
That was my experience with this game, at least for the first third of it as well.
Yeah.
But after you kind of went to 2, maybe 3 towns, the mystery starts to deepen.
Yes,
you're not
true.
just the savior of the land to the big old white knight to defeat the big black evil. But there is a big old mystery about what happened to the supposed land of Ys.
Yes, right.
Who exactly are these 2 blue-haired ladies, Feena and Reah? What happened 700 years ago exactly? Why did Ys disappear? What's going on with this thing called the Black Pearl?
Yeah, that made me laugh. All I heard was Pirates of the Caribbean when I read that.
Oh, yeah? Johnny Depp was just going to appear.
Yeah, continue, sorry, yeah.
So there's genuine mystery, even though it's not doing a great job at explaining the mystery.
No, but again, ladies and gents, Ys 1 and 2 are fundamentally the same story, so they're kind of interconnected, so it's kind of like a cliffhanger type aspect to the first game. I did love that the villain in this was called Dark Fact. I miss the insane names of old games for bad guys. I love them. Dark Fact is amazing. It
is a very good name. It is good. I like it as well. It's up there with Jill Valentine.
Yes, exactly. And what was the Mega Man bad guy called? There were some mental bad guys in the day, and Dark Fact just sits up there so well. I love it so much.
Like one of those evil robots, Tornado Man, Ground Man,
and just look
Electric
at all
Man,
Metal Gear Solid, be it Metal Snake and
Ocelot.
Yes, exactly. All those old. I love the old names of things. A bit Dark Fact. I was like, hell yeah, I'm taking.
There's actually some lore to why he's called that.
Really? I thought it was just cheesy name.
No, but in Ys, the entire point is to collect the 6 books of Ys to uncover the mystery.
That's right.
If these 6 books fall into the wrong hands, like Dark Fact, then the entire country is destined and prophesied for a very bad time.
Nice. No spoilers.
But if these 6 books fall into the hands of a pure of heart hero like Adol Christen, then the evil shall be repelled.
Classic good versus evil.
These 6 books are each written by let's say one of the priests of the 2 goddesses of Ys.
That's right.
One of those priests being the priest of Fact. His surname, his last name was Fact. And Dark Fact is a descendant of one of these priests.
Oh, okay. That actually has some more deeper lore than I expected in by all accounts.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, I went deep into the lore of this game.
You completed the first one, right? That's crazy. That did get deeper than I expected. I didn't quite get to the end. That's kind of cool.
I dove into this game headfirst, and I really liked it. I didn't think I'd like this game as much as I did.
And fundamentally, Adol kind of finds beats the bad guy, and then the city of Ys appears, right? Or comes up from or floats into the sky. Am I right?
Yeah, it stays there, but because he kind of gets tossed from the top of Dome Tower, he lands on top of Ys, miraculously enough.
And thus, the cliffhanger for the Ys 1, and then onto Ys 2, right?
Correct. I'm very glad they made this a package.
Yes, I can. Yeah, because do you think it would be too rushed if it was just one?
No, I wouldn't call it rushed. We'll get back to that value for money, but I think this shouldn't have. I don't think this should be a cliffhanger. I like it way more when it's a complete narrative.
Yes, of course. Yeah, no, I got what you mean.
And it feels like, with the first game being called Ys, if you end the game by landing on top of Ys and it's done, I don't know, that feels like a fake-out ending. And by these 2 being a package deal, it is a fake-out ending, which I like way more.
That's I see what you mean. And so, so Ys, you're now on the floating kingdom of Ys. You discover a bunch of people living on the island. They're descendants of the ancient civilization that the Bretons myth was part of the Bretons myth. Yep. And then you meet Feena and Reah again, right? They're the mysterious women in the first one. Their true identities kind of get revealed to you in this.
Yeah.
And then they're tied to the Black Pearl. Their powers and their story is. Yes. And then you kind of do it all over again. You are the hero who then needs to go find the bad guy Dallas, which made me kind of sad because that's not a cool bad guy name. And enjoyed the
it's
first
not as
one
good as Dark Fact.
Yeah, like Dallas, like come on.
That's just a place.
With again, lots of towns to visit, lots of dungeons to crawl through, lots of bosses and things to collect, and another fun little narrative in here is somewhat in gameplay as well. You can kind of transform into a demon now and kind of get their side of the story of how things are going, compared to just thinking of them as baddies and things for you to kill. You kind of get opened up to a narrative that don't judge a book by its cover. Not all bad guys are bad. Not all monsters are
it seems
monsters.
There are 2 sides of this coin.
And to think how old this game, 1988, that's actually kind of a big narrative twist to put into such a small game such as this.
Yeah, not just that, but a simple mechanic
Yep.
opens up the game
Yes,
way more.
Yeah, it really does. It kind of changes the perspective of you being the hero, just killing everything, and then realizing on the other side of that coin, you're the monster who's killing them.
Yep.
It's which is
great.
done a lot now, but back in the day, that's a big twist.
That's what I was about to say. What back in 1987, 88, 89, this must have been very great.
Yeah, mind-blowing type stuff in regards to what was actually available back then and you were playing.
Yeah.
So all in all, like I said, we don't want to give too many spoilers. We're not going to flesh it out too much. It's your typical JRPG adventure where you go meet people, collect things, level up.
Yeah, no, totally agreed. I appreciate how simple it was. Even if it came from a time where games were just simple and that's it.
Yes, very true.
Even today, by playing this, it really was just, at least the first game, good versus evil.
But isn't it great that sometimes those games just grab you? That you got grabbed by a game from like 1988 and completed the whole thing because at this moment in time, that calls to you to be the adventurer, to climb the tower, to defeat the bad guys. It's so cool when that happens.
It is something special. Like rewatching Casablanca.
Whoa, you went... You went into a classic. I thought you were going to say Goonies or like Star Wars or something. You went straight Casablanca... Auschwitz. That was a crazy pull. But okay, yeah.
It's true though.
Each to their own. But yeah, I agree. It is kind of. I understand what you mean. Diving into something that you're trying interesting again. Yeah.
Next up, visuals.
Visuals. Again, there's something very nostalgic about the old JRPGs for me in regards to Final Fantasy and all the other ones I played. I liked the visuals on this. The newer version of the game had some cool kind of little anime cutscenes to them. Kind of very low frame rate kind of anime scenes, but I thought they were kind of clean. They were good to see. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what anime cutscenes are you talking about? The intro.
The intro, and there was another one somewhere. The intro had one.
Another one.
Wasn't there one at the end? I swear I saw it. Either way, a little anime cutscene.
Probably was.
I like the little... There's a very nostalgic thing about those little portraits they put for all the vendors and the doctors and the people you saw that sold you stuff.
Yes, it's just a single image, but it's like a first-person perspective of what it'd look like if you were looking at a merchant.
But it was one of those... that used to be, or came into fashion in like the late 80s to 90s because there's so many dungeon crawlers and stuff like that came out with the same... just stationary image of a blacksmith that came. But again, it was clean images. It was all anime-esque inspired type photos and pictures.
Correct.
And big eyes and stuff like that. It looked good. I thought granted, we did play the revamped version, but the revamped
That's
version
exactly what I
good.
was going to say, ladies and gents. This is not the 1987 version. We are talking about the Chronicles Plus.
Yeah.
Chronicles Plus version, which is available on Steam and goodallgames.com. This is the version you can buy and play and enjoy. That's what we played. And I liked the pixel art version of what this game looks like. It felt like a game on the SNES.
Yes, sorry, I just heard you said... I thought you just said NES, and I thought, no. But yes,
No.
Right, SNES. You know,
Yes.
it does. It has that fun, nostalgic feeling about it. And it's not... It's not terrible. You know, lots of people don't go back to old gaming because it looks bad or the sprites are chunky and stuff. This actually looks fairly clean. You know, the hair, you can see the hair and the arms, the facial features, the sword strokes when you bump into people and stuff like that. It's visually quite appealing, apart from some of the dungeons. Some of the dungeons were just the same area again and again and again, I thought, in a lot of the games. Like, maddeningly so, just going
Which
to the
dungeons?
same... What was the second game, you go to that... I'm going to call it a mine, because there's a pickaxe and things you got to pick up, and you got the weird little bestery that comes. But I got so lost. I got so lost in so many of these little places, because to me, they looked all the same, yes.
Okay, I get that. I don't think there was a lot of variation when it came to places, maybe not even characters. It all looked very simple.
Yeah.
In areas, I can understand that, especially from a game this old. Plains are plains, towns are towns, and caves are caves.
Yeah, agreed.
The simplicity, I don't necessarily see a problem with that. I can see that it gets monotonous, but I think the simplicity complements the game.
Well, I think later on, I think a lot of the time, I'm thinking there's a certain aspect to gameplay that kind of grinded on me, so it made the visuals a little bit more monotonous in regards to playing it. So I'll give you it kind of ties into some of the gameplay aspects, because if you are scrolling through like the pictures and the screens and in regards to the areas you go to, it's fully color, it's full bright sprites and everything on it. It is actually well done. It is kind of visually pleasing when you're playing through it, but just kind of got a bit monotonous in some parts for me.
Speaking of the oversimplicity, I think the character designs aren't anywhere near as heavily stylized as some modern JRPG characters.
True. Yeah, that's very true.
If I take a look at these gacha characters, I want to barf. Just 10, 20 different types of belts and chains and lockets and bags and hats and glasses and gloves and boots and socks. Why?
I feel like you're instantly just like channeling Hojoverse and every anime character that's on those.
Exactly.
Every
those
luggage.
Genshin Impact characters.
Yeah, exactly. With everything.
Come on. It's just so super heavily stylized. I really like it when characters are just two-toned. They wear two colors, like the new Dragon Quest game. Those characters, most of them are just wearing two different colors.
Yeah,
that's it.
True. That is like an outfit-wise. Yeah, you're not entirely
exactly.
wrong there.
And in
that's
this
true.
game, the same. Adol's main characteristics is red hair.
Red hair. Yep.
That's it. Feena and Reah, yes, they've both got blue hair. That's it.
But strange enough, the red hair thing is actually through all the Ace games, is it Ace?
East games, yeah.
East games is you'll hear narratives of a red-haired adventurer through other games which he's not in, because he's supposedly adventuring at the same time but somewhere else. And so you'll go to taverns and place and they'll talk about a red-haired adventurer, which is a slight nod to Adol and his adventures outside of the games.
That's
so
cool.
He is iconic. His red hair is actually an iconic aspect of his character.
Yes, and that's it. They only talk about the red-haired adventurer.
That's right.
They don't say the red-haired 12-belted, triple-booted adventurer.
Yeah, it's not like merch sales centralized in regards to doing things.
I mean, they did this on Reah and Feena as well. They've either just a big white cloak or a big brown cloak and blue hair. That's it.
But that's the classic of the era. That is the era of the 80s, 90s. Especially anime did the exact same thing. Every heroine, every hero was kind of just in cloaks and then brightly coloured hair. No, I got the nostalgia for it. I love that type of stuff. I agree.
Yeah.
Anything else visuals
yes,
you want to add?
The only other thing that I also do want to raise is something I think specific to the Chronicles version, which looks like some SNES games. This was probably not on the original game. In fact, I'm confident in saying it wasn't, is sometimes there was some parallax scrolling in the background.
Oh.
If you went on your way to the Thieves' Den and you were on a mountain, you could take a look at the background and it was parallax scrolling like there was no tomorrow.
Wow,
which would indicate some very far depth. Or on the tower, when you were in between floors on the outside of the tower.
Yeah.
That's some parallax scrolling in the background.
That's actually kind of strange. Because I guess I think I read these things, or not read, I watch these things and play these things that I see it all normalized because I'm thinking it's an old game and you're just like, you're playing an old game, so I don't notice the things. But yeah, that's kind of strange.
It is.
A lot of the other places
when you were
fine.
Underground in the mines and there was this long bridge. Mm-hmm. And then as you were walking over this bridge,
you were running across
just a massive cavern in the background.
That's right.
That was cool. That's something that stood out to me. I like that.
No, that's fun. That's funky. I love that type of stuff.
I don't think it's relatively groundbreaking today, the visuals, but it was pleasant and cohesive and charming.
Fair enough. These games often are.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else visually, or should we go to the audio?
Audio? You mean the best segment of this entire review?
Isn't it crazy? Absolutely mind-blowing. Ladies and gents, never played these games, didn't know what I was coming into. Not a big audio man, that's Nick over there.
Yeah.
And I was, holy crap. The soundtrack to this game is amazing.
It really is. It is just absolutely incredible.
Every moment you're playing to it, It is so amped up and just rock and just hardcore, and
yes,
it is insane. It is insane.
yeah.
A game came out with this soundtrack to it. It knocks Final Fantasies of that era out the park. The soundtrack to this is amazing.
It really does. I cannot believe it, but you are right.
No, it's mad.
This music has some serious energy, right? And not only when you're fighting, but if you're in areas where you're expected to be fighting, like Dom Tower, some caves, the plains. Some of these tracks are just basically straight up metal.
It is. It's so hard to put it across, ladies and gents, because this is an old game. We were playing the PSP version. I think originally was the Chronicles Plus, right? So little devices, low space and memory to play with. So there was limitation to it. But this soundtrack, it doesn't seem the case at all. The soundtrack was so metal, so hardcore. I was doing the research on it, and it is actually one of the most famous Japanese video game soundtracks in Japan. It is so recognizable, right?
Not surprised at all. I always thought when I was hearing a track, okay, this one's good. This is probably the good track of the game. No, whenever another track started playing, it was equally as good. Yeah. There was just banger after banger.
And it carried on into number 2 when you were playing it and you played the game and you started the first scene and stuff like that. And it goes so... I could not believe it. I couldn't believe I didn't know this already. Because this soundtrack it's one of those things where you said, oh yeah, but the soundtrack. Like when you hear Elden Ring and people talk about that, you go, oh yeah, the sound. This was remarkable. And I can't believe this wasn't on the radar in regards to my JRPG playing.
Listen,
and stuff like that.
Ladies and gents, it sounds like we're just glazing the hell out of the soundtrack for this game. And guess what? We are!
Yeah, like I was tempted
because it really is that good.
I was tempted to buy an LP. I went, you know that you get those cool gaming LPs and stuff now that you can buy that are kind of collectible. I looked, you can get this as an LP as well. Whoa. It is that good. I'm not a music person. I listen to music when it's on the car, but this made me play the game longer. The soundtrack made me play this game for a lot longer.
I want to talk about, there's a specific track.
Yeah.
Right? I looked this up. This track in this game is called Dreaming.
Yeah, makes sense.
Dreaming is probably my favorite track in the entire game. And that's saying a lot because there are tons of good tracks in this game. The only problem is Dreaming is only on a single floor on Dom Tower in the entire game. Meaning,
wow,
it's not even one of the earlier floors. It's one of the later floors when you're near the top. Meaning this is in the final dungeon near the end of the game. You would have only played for hours upon hours before getting to this single floor playing this single track.
Potentially never coming to this track if you gave up.
Exactly.
In regards to
Tons of people who played this never heard this track. That is the saddest thing to me. I genuinely wish more people had heard this song. I put this on repeat on YouTube and did my job. My real job. Worked for hours listening to this single song.
Isn't it like we kind of just want to like drop the whole the podcast now and just play the music so that everyone can actually just hear it and go, oh my, hopefully you'd say they're right because this music, it's so good.
It really is.
I'm just talking about it. I know we're glazing it, ladies and gents, and it is insane. But if you listen to you play the game and the visuals and what you're actually doing, and then you play the soundtrack to it, you just think, wow, this is just one of those very unique moments where the soundtrack person just crushed it. He just
absolutely. Go
on.
The only other piece of music that I felt was as good as Dreaming was, funny enough, the intro.
Intro to 1 or intro to 2? Because the intro to 2 is 1. The most... Oh, yeah.
I treated the intro to 1... I treated that the same way I treat all the Persona intros, meaning I watch it through each time I start the game.
When you boot up the game, I know exactly.
Yes, I watch the entire thing each time I boot up the game. That opening song is fantastic. It immediately gets me excited to play.
Yeah.
Not only that, the music is great, but the intro itself has got some surprisingly effective visual storytelling too. It basically tells you what happened 700 years ago and what the story is now.
No, like I said, it just sounds so much glazing. But there are sound effects. They're in there. The cling clang of battling monsters. The sound effects of the bosses and their effects. Those are just drowned out by the sound. I just need everyone who's listening to this to go to Spotify, go to YouTube, go get the soundtrack to. I can't say the name of the game. Ys. Which one is it? Ys.
Yes, Ys Chronicles. Ys I 2 Chronicles.
I promise you, if you're into any sort of like nostalgic music or just music in general, you've got to listen to this. It is insanely good.
Correct. And then realize that came out in the 80s.
Yes. On unlimited software, unlimited just music capturing everything.
Sure, it was redone for modern hardware, but the heart of that music was in the 80s. I cannot believe it.
It is crazy.
Anything
else,
we're done
or should we go to gameplay?
Yes, let's go on to what I think is going to be a very divisive segment.
Yes, I was about to say the same thing. The gameplay. Okay, ladies and gents, I've got a background of playing turn-based JRPGs. I like them. I don't mind more hack-and-slash JRPGs. I enjoy those. This... To their credit, I will give them credit to this. This is a gameplay in a JRPG I have never played before. This is out of the box thinking. This is different. In this game, instead of being turn-based or having random encounters and stuff like that, you run your hero into the bad guys.
That's right.
You just bash them. You just run into
bash them with your person. It's called the bump system.
Which isn't the coolest name for a system, I might add.
No.
I'm bumping him.
I'm winning him by bumping on him.
Yeah. And I didn't like it. I get what it's trying to do. They did qualify. They were trying to make JRPGs a faster paced type thing. So it's not just a slog to get through.
They succeeded
dungeons.
in that regard.
Yes, they did. It is a faster way of doing things.
Yes. Adol is moving. He is sprinting
he does
across
move
the
at some
screen.
pace.
It takes me seconds to go from town to town.
Yes, he does strangely move rapidly. He is,
I think initially when I started this game, I felt exactly like you did. I did not like the combat for this game. It felt clunky.
Yeah, it was
I'd
weird.
run directly into enemies and immediately get killed.
Yes, because there is a degree of complexity to it. You can't run into the enemies head on, right?
Yeah.
You can't come in or they'll counter attack you and deal you more damage than you do deal them.
You kind of need to hit them on your side.
Yeah, like slightly off center, like slightly off
off
right,
center.
slightly
That's right.
off
You
left.
kind of need to hit them slightly off center. And I didn't understand how is this fun? How is this supposed to work? I keep dying.
It was a weird system. It's weird to play.
It really is. And then
there we go. Here it comes.
It clicked. Then it clicked. I understood. There was one simple thing I tried and it worked incredibly well. And that carried me straight to the end to Dark Fact.
Okay, but now you say that, doesn't that sound boring? That you found one way to do it and you just kept doing that same thing each time and that got you to the bad guy.
You know what?
Yeah.
Yes, it does sound boring.
It does,
but
right?
when I play it, it's far from it.
I'll
it's
give you
not boring.
Some of the boss fights and stuff like that had a good level of complexity to them, making it not super easy to kind of get on them like off center because they're attacking you or moving and stuff like that. So it did have kind of like some Metroidvania type style to some of the boss fights, which I did enjoy. But no, just randomly going to level upon level and just running roughly at a weird angle at people and then dying. You level up like most JRPGs. You level up. Yeah. You get EXP. You get collectibles and you
get extra HP, some strength.
That's right.
Stats increase,
which is cool.
It is, and eventually you get some more gear so that you can deal some more damage. It's fun. Yes, it is fun.
It's okay. I do like to keep the fast pace going. You could kind of heal if you were in an unsafe area by just standing still, which is okay. That's kind of fun. Like I said, you don't have to keep going back to an inn and restarting and stuff like that. I do it kept the pace going very fast and forwards and kept the momentum, it was okay.
This was actually the very first case. I think if my research is right, this was the very first case of kind of healing by disengaging and standing still.
Yeah, I think so too. I can't think of...
Which Call of Duty still does.
Call of Duty does that? I didn't know that Call of Duty does that. Really?
If you get shot a couple of times, just take cover. You'll heal.
Oh, kind of like the like Gears of War kind of does the same thing, right? You get the
yes,
cog up.
exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
yeah,
All
I
of
got
that came from Ys, Dave.
Could you imagine the board meeting? Okay, so Gears of War, we got Marcus, but we are grabbing the healing capabilities from Ys, the game from 1988.
Oh, yes,
imagine?
brilliant, sir, brilliant, fantastic idea, fantastic idea. How about we give Marcus Phoenix red hair?
Yeah, could you imagine? You say that, there is going to be new Gears of War, there's going to be skins. Get the Adol skin with his armor.
Happen.
And he runs into
happen.
people.
So,
go on.
I really liked the gameplay because I went along with the idea of in most games, especially a platformer, if you're playing as a character and you touch a baddie, what happens to you?
You lose health, like a good chunk
Exactly.
of your health. Yeah.
What happened if that idea got flipped around? What if you touched a baddie, the baddie
health.
took damage?
I feel like you are in the meeting pitching this playstyle to like actually now we come to say let's do it.
If you take that idea and go through the entire game, yes, it is fun. Yes, I feel unstoppable.
I'll give you the I feel unstoppable part. I will give you the I feel unstoppable part because you are just
I genuinely got
things.
excited whenever the guide I read on Game FAQs on GameFAQs told me I need to grind a level or two. I thought, hell yeah, time to mess up some demons.
But you did make a very good point just there. This game, you do need a game guide. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's true.
Old games from the 80s were notoriously insane with what you have to do, and this is one of those games. If you do not have a guide, you will not know where to like hit the wall or where to grab or which floor to go to first to do them.
True.
It is crazy, crazy hard to kind of find your way around it and who to talk to and stuff like that.
Oh, super true. I can't imagine playing this without a guide.
Could you imagine just how many hours you put into it just being lost? Jeez.
No, this would turn from a 5-hour game into a 20 or 30-hour
which is kind of how they did it back in the day. Yeah, it's kind of how they did it back in the day. But
how am I supposed to know that after I did this very specific thing in the dungeon, I need to find this person 2 towns back to the left in the woods and then take that to Granny?
Yeah, and there's no map markers. There's no like things to follow or yellow paint or anything like that to kind of. No, it is kind of a mystery what you're supposed to do.
But like, it's bad.
No, it is.
I was genuinely shocked by how disconnected some of the progression felt.
You do need a guide. This isn't a joke. You do need a guide to play these games now.
That's true.
Ys II. Go on, sorry.
No, I was going to move on to the bosses. What were you going to say?
I just thought Ys II introduced magic, which I thought was a nice addition. You could use fire and electricity and kind of like Kamehameha your fireballs at things. I thought that was a lot more fun than running into them. So they did develop, as the game goes on, the sword play and the mechanics a bit more. I enjoyed 2's combat far more than 1's because I thought it was more fleshed out.
Yes.
What did you want to say something about the boss fights?
The bosses. I'm gonna say is one of it's gonna contradict all of what I just said, but damn, some of these bosses probably has some of the worst boss design I've encountered in all of gaming, and I wish I was exaggerating.
Wow, of all of gaming.
All of gaming, that's true. There are multiple bosses in this game.
Yes, yeah.
That would comfortably make a top 10 worst bosses ever.
Which one's your worst?
The worst?
Which one was the worst for you?
Dark Fact. Easy. I'm not joking. At a certain point, I didn't think I'd be able to defeat Dark Fact.
Well, because of his backline and how powerful and badass and stuff he is, or just the design?
Just the fight itself might not even take a minute, but holy crap. Just do yourself a favor, or don't, and watch the fight against Dark Fact on YouTube. He flies around like one of those DVD player logos, just bouncing on the sides.
I remember those bad guys. Yeah.
He throws you with fireballs every second. That fireball lands and explodes into 8 smaller fireballs.
Yeah, so it's kind of like
if you get hit by anything, you take damage. If you hit Dark Fact bouncing around like a DVD player logo, the floor just gives way underneath you.
Holy crap, that sounds complicated, gents. It isn't really that easy not to make a mistake here and there in boss fights. Like, that sounds complicated.
It is. So if you end up hitting Dark Fact in between thousands of fireballs 15 times, yes, there are 15 holes in the floor.
Oh, so it kind of makes it like a net that you can fall into. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know that. That's an interesting...
It sucks.
But you came through in the end, right? You overcame all these challenges. It's no different to Dark Souls. It's the same as defeating...
I don't... Dark Souls has got some very good boss design. Dark Fact is just some 80s...
We'll just stick to his name being great compared to his combat.
The bosses are truly horrible.
Which they got a little better in 2, though. I thought 2's bosses were alright. Granted, I can't remember them. I remember one big crab and somebody else later on in the game. But anyway, we digress. Anything else gameplay-wise, or should we go to performance?
You absolutely need a guide. It doesn't communicate objectives. The boss design sucks.
Which they don't fix in 2, by the way.
Single one of them.
Yeah, in 2. They don't fix that in 2. It's the same problem. That everything's really obscure in what you're supposed to do. So, a game guide.
Mm-hmm. But the bump system, when it clicks, baby.
If you say so. If you say so.
Come on, Dave. Okay, performance.
Everything went well. It's an old game. This was the new revamped version. Very smooth, very easy. No real problems.
this was Chronicles was made to run on the PlayStation Portable, the PSP.
Mm-hmm.
Chronicles Plus is the enhanced version for Steam for PCs.
So
of course it ran well.
Yeah, easy peasy. Great performance. No issues. Okay, value for money though.
Right. So. Value for money. This one's interesting. Initially, this used to be 2 different games, but we've been very vocal with the fact that this is Ys 1 and Ys 2 together. And that's already a good proposition.
Yeah, how it should be played.
Another one that a lot of people look down on that I actually favored was these games are short.
Yes. Especially for JRPGs, right? Which are notoriously relatively long, fleshed out. Yeah, right.
I think... The newer modern Ys games, Ys 10 and I think Ys 11, I don't know if that's out yet.
They are long.
They are 30, 40-hour games.
Yeah.
In comparison, Ys 1, Ancient Ys Omen, Ancient Ys Vanished Omen, is 5 hours.
Well, between 5 and 7. I read, and again, if you don't have a guide, that could be 40 hours.
Yeah, but
you're
don't
right.
have
you're
a
right.
guide. Then
you're right. For a Japanese
JRPG,
7 hours is nothing. You're absolutely right. That's a tutorial for
5 hours. I love that. You're getting the complete JRPG experience of story, characters, exploration, leveling, equipment, bosses, some dungeons, some mystery, some adventure. But it's not a slog through 50 or 70 hours.
Agreed. I do understand that's especially
that's a huge positive for me.
That's why a lot of people don't play JRPGs because they're too long. Like they're too much of a time sink, and this does fix that side of thing. And number 2 is about 10 hours, so 8 to 10 hours I got down here. So it's a little bit bigger.
Good. Still all right.
And price wise, I got Steam. It was $10. Good old games. It was $10, and then I looked what the original physical copies for the PSP was, and if you own some of those things. They're like $60 to $90 right now if you own relatively limited print, it would seem, on the old physicality side. So if you got one of those sitting in your bedroom, I don't know, dust it off.
Maybe go check a listing on eBay or something.
Yeah, that was crazy. So but value for money wise, you obviously had a blast in regards to
I did. I'd pay $10 for this. I'd pay $10 for this easy.
Agreed. I think $10
this is a part of history, but it's also a really... This was fun. I had fun playing this game.
We paid
and
$10
my ears
for the soundtrack. Right? And that's for 2 games, so it's in theory $5 a piece, which kind of just makes it sound even better with everything's come down to thing. So it's sure, it's fun. It's definitely a soundtrack you want to listen to. It is a kind of legacy type JRPG, which I always think going back in history and looking where games came from is always a lot of fun. This is one of the big powerhouses of JRPGs and Japan in general. So picking that up and just seeing what it was, I think is well worth the $10 price tag. I think the value for money was pretty high on our side. So
I genuinely did not expect to like Ys I II
Yeah,
Chronicles
no,
Plus
I'm shocked how
this
much you liked it. But that's great. That's the good thing about gaming, right? You can sometimes find an obscure game.
I was truly just expecting an interesting historical JRPG, but whoa, what we got was some fantastic music, some charming visuals, a mystery that I liked. I liked the mystery of Ys and Feena and Reah. I felt some real connection, and really satisfying combat. It's just a package that I really engaged with.
Yeah, the list knocked it out the park with this one by all accounts.
Thank you once again, list. All hail the list.
So after all that, what did we score this game? What for the ladies and gents to know what kind of score?
Ladies and gentlemen, we gave Ys I II Chronicles Plus a B-, which is a great score. Hell yeah. B-? That's great.
Because the gameplay sucked. But it is a great score. Like, it's the same score we gave Planet Zoo just the other day. It's a B- is a fantastic game from 1987. Granted, a little bit revamped for the newer generation.
I totally get why this was as influential as it was back then.
Yes, agreed. Again, as a JRPG player, I'd heard these games and I knew of them and I never picked them up, and I feel bad because this is worth anybody playing, let alone just someone who's a fan of the genre.
Yeah.
So yeah, B-, not too bad.
Would this encourage you to play any of the other Ys games?
I know I've played one of them. It's just there's so many of them, I couldn't tell you which one it was. I'm fairly certain I wasn't a red-haired adventurer, so I wasn't a doll. I don't think. I think I was blue-haired. It was on sale on PlayStation Network at some point. I really can't remember. There are a lot of these games. But yeah, I would play the others now for sure. I would definitely pick up the other ones to see. I think so.
Goes. I think I'd be interested in Ys Origins, which is the story about what happened to Ys 700 years ago. That sounds cool to me.
Well, yeah, no doubt. Again, these games look great, and there's like 17, 50, 30, I don't know. There's loads of them, so there's lots of gameplay there, right?
Don't dissuade me.
Yeah, that's right. As a father of four, try squeezing that all in.
No, thanks. No. Instead, Dave, how about you tell us, what have we got lined up for next week?
Oh, next week, it seems we got very lucky, and we're going to be getting our hands on the brand new was this a remaster? I don't really know to define this as a remaster.
No, it's just the next entry in a dormant series, a dormant franchise.
The next entry, in the Onimusha franchise, Way of the Sword, for PlayStation 5. We get our hands on that, see if it's any good.
Capcom's been hitting it out of the park.
Oh no, right? Anything labeled with Capcom right now, you kind of just know it's going to be good. So yeah, exciting times.
That's some quality.
Yeah. We can't wait. So, we genuinely can't wait. Can't.
And we know neither can you.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to listen in next week.
Yes. Thank you for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.